Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. You might notice that this sounds a little different than normal, this preamble, and that's because, actually I spent a very long day in airports across America being rerouted because of weather. I started in Los Angeles and now I'm here back in Nashville. And my microphone that I use to record this preamble is in my luggage. And I am here without my luggage. I do have a spare mic, but unfortunately the plug on it is not working. So I am forced to speak at my Mac. So I know it sounds weird or strange or not as good as usual, but bear with me. This episode I'm really excited about. I spoke with Larry Goad. He is here in Tennessee. He had put a post on his Facebook wall that I read, and I thought, my gosh, I really have to talk to this guy. And he was very kind and said yes. And he tells his story of being I would say a survivor. I don't consider him a victim. A survivor of a home invasion and having been shot at and things. And honestly, I really think Larry is quite possibly a Zen master, and you'll see why I say that when you listen to this episode. So usual stuff, rate and review Hey Human on iTunes. I greatly appreciate that. It's really helpful. If you shop Amazon, go through the Amazon portal on the homepage of heyhumanpodcast.com, and that helps support Hey Human. And also the links page where I put books and movies and stuff we talk about. It's all on the links page from every episode. And those links, if it's for something like a book or a movie, if you click on that, you get taken to Amazon, and it helps Hey Human Podcast. See where I'm going with this? Your support is greatly encouraged through Amazon, where you're probably shopping anyway, if you're an Amazon shopper, which I am. And I think you are too, maybe. And if you're not, you should be, because it helps support Hey Human. Hey, am I being redundant? I am. But that's just because it's been a very long day, and I am jet-lagged and crazy. But that's okay. I'm also hungry. I'm very excited. I have nut balls cooking in the toaster oven. And for those of you that don't know, nut balls is the actual name of it. And I think it's pecan nut or something like that. But my gosh, they're so good. And I haven't eaten all day, so I'm very excited for this situation to go ding and for me to devour them. I'm off track a little, but that's okay. What else? Social media, heyhumanpodcast.com. And Twitter, Susan Ruthism. And of course, I have a regular website, susanruth.com, and I already told you about heyhumanpodcast.com. So we're good on that. And please email me if you want, susan@heyhumanpodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you. And that's always fun when I get emails in the old inbox. All right, well, that's all I've got for now. The microphone should be arriving in the morning, but I really want to get this out and on the schedule that I stick to. It's important to me to be consistent. So, all right, thanks y'all for listening. I really appreciate it. And wherever you are, I hope you're doing awesome. Yay, let's do this. Here we go. Hi, Larry Goad.
Well, hi there, Susan Ruth. How are you?
You have a good voice for this.
I've been told that.
Yeah, you have a good low voice. Thanks for being on Hey Human.
Oh, well, that's perfectly all right. You know, it's a pleasure for you to come here. So.
Yeah, thank you. I read something that you had posted on Facebook, and it piqued my interest. I play around with the idea of forgiveness, what it means, what forgiveness means, what it means to, especially in insurmountable situations where you think, there's no way you would ever forgive someone. All that stuff really fascinates me. And you posted this big thing on your Facebook wall. Tell my listeners, or our listeners, for that matter, what that was.
Well, about 8.5 years ago or so, I had a home invasion here in the studio. I was actually in the house, and I'd gone to Third and Lindsley, hear a buddy of mine play. And so I came in late. And I locked the door, and so anyway, I was up, I couldn't get to sleep, and all of a sudden my dog just started growling like I'd never heard him growl before. I mean, this is pretty crazy. So I got up and went to the the door and raised the window, and I saw the garage door was open. Mm-hmm. So I knew that had been, something was up. So my weaponry was out here in the studio, and I was like, well, that's not good. So I grabbed a knife, and I opened up the door, and the dog took off, and I took off, and there was a kid getting in the cars, and he drove off on a bicycle, and I chased him. Actually, if I'd been smart, I would have cut across the yard and I would have caught him. But if I'd done that, then what followed would have never happened. So anyway, I didn't catch him. I come back in here because I was going to get my weapon and call the cops and do all that. Well, I come in the door, and back in the control room, I see a little red light. It's a little headlamp, a little red light. And there was this kid standing there looking at this sheet of paper, or actually several sheets of paper, and just transfixed on it. And I took a couple of steps forward, and I said, "Hey!" And he turned around, and he had my pistol in his hand. Now, that pistol, I had just cleaned. Actually, it's my dad's pistol. Is a really old revolver. But I just cleaned it a few days before and decided to put the old ammunition back in it. So anyway, he raised up the gun, pointed it at me, and pulled the trigger. And it was almost like the Matrix. Everything went into slow motion, But the minute that I heard the click and no bullet fire, my adrenaline took over, so much so that I tore the inside of my shoes out from pushing off to go after him. And so we had
So you went toward him. The bullet didn't discharge.
It did not fire. And so I went toward him.
Okay.
And of course he freaked out because it did, he was a white kid on dope, basically. I mean, he
what
was
kind
on,
of, do you know what kind of dope? Just, I'm curious to take
someone's
life.
He was on all sorts of stuff. But
okay.
Anyway, I fought with him at the back door. He was 17. I was 52 at the time. And so he got a little bit the best of me, but he took off running. So I called the police, 911, explained what was going on. Well, the cops apparently had been looking for these two because they'd been on a little crime spree in the neighborhood all night long. So they were here just like that.
Did he take the gun with him? Or?
Yes, he took the gun with him. And as he was running up the street or walking through the yards, the cops tried to stop him, and he raised the gun toward the police officer and fired it. And once again, it misfired, and he took off. And he ran, and all the cops that were looking for him were down at the Shell station, and he just ran right through the trees and right into the parking lot of the Shell station. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was caught. So anyway, the detective had told me later that he wasn't afraid of the police, but that old man was friggin' crazy.
What was on the paper that he was looking at? Years
ago, a friend had given me a copy of the court paperwork of Dr. Nicopolis from Elvis fame, and they were a list of all the drugs that Dr. Nicopolis had given Elvis in the last 3 months of his life. So this kid, being on dope, of course, was seeing all these major drugs, and I guess he thought they were here. He was really excited. I mean, he was just like this, and plus it's in the control room is a little deader because he couldn't hear me come in.
Yeah.
But he shot at the cop, and which was not smart. So when we got to trial, he was 17 at the time.
They didn't fire back at him?
The cop did, yeah.
Yeah, I was
and it grazed him right by his temple, just grazed him. But when we got to trial, I had to testify that I thought he should be as an adult, tried as an adult because he was 17. And I was very candid, and I said, when I was that age, I probably did every drug he did, but I never robbed from anybody, I never sold from everybody, I never shot at anybody. And so he went to trial, and he got 18 years. And
that's because of the gun, I assume.
Right, but the interesting thing is, this is one of those God things. The interesting thing is the way that I loaded the bullets in random order saved me and the police officer, because the gun forensic guy said every bullet had been fired that night. or that morning. So that meant when he tried to shoot at me, it didn't work, and he was running away from here, and he shot the gun a couple times, trying to keep me in the air, trying to keep me away from him. And then when he pointed it at the cop, it didn't fire. So 3 out of the bullets fired and 3 didn't.
Goodness.
But yeah, I wasn't real happy with him, and I was glad that he got, the 18 years. But I have to say, the more I found out about his backstory, I've kind of felt sorry for him. His mother had abandoned him. His grandparents and parents were alcoholics, and I'm a recovering alcoholic also, so I know what that's about. Plus, he was bipolar and had not been on his medication, and I figured that prison was probably the best place for him, and I think that's what the good Lord thought too, with all the way things happened. But as time has gone by, he wrote me a letter and apologized and told me that he got his GED, showed me his GED card.
Had he been keeping up with you since he had been incarcerated, or did it out of the blue come?
Well, he just wrote me a letter. I think maybe they're required to or something when they go in. But he wrote me a letter showing me, and it was a long letter telling me how sorry he was.
It's probably part of the 12 steps, is my guess.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And he sent his GED card to show me that he'd gotten that. And because of that, I told him, I said, man, if you stay, keep your nose clean in prison, and take, drug classes and any kind of positive classes that you can take, I will come and testify for your release. Because, it's not real, prison's not really the way to treat a drug problem and bipolarness and all this other stuff.
Sure.
So we went to the parole hearing, and unfortunately they said he's got to come back in 12 more months. But
had he been behaving? Why did they deny him parole?
He had gotten into a fight, but I mean, come on, it's prison.
I understand.
Sometimes you have to stand your ground, or it's not a good thing. So, but he had pretty much passed all of these things and had certificates, and his grandparents and his dad and stuff weren't allowed to talk to him. I wasn't allowed to talk to him or anything. But, he was taking responsibility for all of his actions. And I'm going to go back in 12 months and be a little more forceful, I think. Say, like, it's costing the state $30,000 a year to keep him here when he could be out working and paying taxes.
Sure.
And learning how to be a responsible adult.
Are you a forgiving person in general, or do you think it's because you saw yourself in him?
If I hadn't had as good a parents as I have, I could have been him. I wasn't bipolar, but I was a wild child. I was in a rock and roll band, so, in the 70s, Lord.
Yeah.
So, I saw a little bit of that, but forgiveness it's so uplifting to take, because anger, it takes more to be angry at someone than it does to forgive them. And that forgiveness releases you. It releases you from that anger, that negativity. And that's just how I feel about it.
Did they catch the other guy that was with him?
Yeah, but he didn't get, he
didn't shoot at anyone.
He didn't shoot at anybody. He said he didn't come into the garage, but I don't believe him. He got away with murder, basically. Not murder, but he got away with, doing the thing. I think a little probation, that was about it.
I wonder if those two of them have stayed in contact. Probably not.
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
So, aside from the letter of apology, has he been in contact with you? Do you guys write each other?
Well, he wrote me a letter before this, because they're supposed to tell me, victims services are supposed to call me and tell me when he comes up for parole, and they never have. And so he wrote me a letter telling me he was coming up for parole, and gave me his grandmother's contact, because I'd told him in good faith, and he had done what I'd said. So I'm a man of my word.
Why do you think they didn't tell you? just slip through the cracks? There's
Probably.
so many people.
Yeah, there's just so much.
That's kind of scary to think about people who suffer, from violent crime that they don't know when they're perpetrators.
Yeah, well, they may concentrate more on when it's been really violent.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe so.
It was violent for me for a couple of seconds, but
Did you have any traumatic, like PTSD after?
Actually, I was doing great, man. I thought I was doing pretty good. I just wrestled a 17-year-old kid. I was 52. Life was good. About 3 months later, I about had a mental breakdown one day. I mean, I just lost it, and I didn't know why. And I went to the doctor because, it went from that to a couple of days of just horrible depression. And I went to the doctor, and he had seen me on television, on the news. So he goes, I know exactly what's wrong with you. And so I was diagnosed with PTSD. And come to find out, I've had it since I was 15. Because I'm on disability because of it. But when I went to court, the judge told me that she had worked with the FBI's program on hostages and stuff, and they had found out if you have a gun pointed at you, then your brain tells you that you've been shot. And so just that can cause PTSD. And I had a guy point a gun at me at a bar I was playing at when I was 15, and I started. That's when I started smoking pot. And then when I was 20, I was standing in my parents' kitchen, and this kid across the way, I thought he was playing with a BB gun. Well, it turned out it was a .22 rifle, and I dropped a cup off the counter, and I went over to pick it up, and when I did, a bullet came through the window right where I was standing. So that's when I started drinking heavy. These are all.
So you were self-medicating.
I was
in a response to something you didn't even know was happening.
And I had no idea what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it actually took this particular situation for me to get diagnosed. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't have, back in the 70s, they didn't have a diagnosis of that.
I mean, I would go out on a limb and say that many of the people that turn to drugs and alcohol as a placation to soothe themselves are doing it because some event has happened that they're not even.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't even know it happened.
Right. I mean, that's very easy. I mean, and some people can. About 20% of your population can't have alcohol without becoming addicted to it, and I'm in that lucky 20%. Woohoo!
Yeah.
But I was a functioning drunk for a long time. It hurt my career, which I didn't think it did at the time, but.
Being in the music industry.
Yeah, but that'll make you drink anyway. Because all the frustration that goes along with it.
Yeah, it's not an easy life.
No, and but I was lucky. I traveled. I played all over the country and Canada and places, music. So, and later on in my later life here, I've worked with some Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members and Jimmy Hall. And some other people like that, guys in Kentucky Headhunters. I mean, worked with some cool people, and life has been good.
That's good.
And so, therefore...
How are you dealing with the PTSD, then?
I'm medicated. I take a little Zoloft every day.
Oh, okay. And it helps?
Well, I'm not freaking out.
Well, what about therapy? Do you do the therapy to unravel the place in your brain where that...
Not really.
Storing the tragic events?
Most of that got taken care of, I think, when I went through my rehab.
Oh, okay.
Because we had group therapy and stuff, and a lot of things would come up at that point in time. Yeah. But I just didn't put it together. And another kind of God moment thing, right after I was diagnosed with PTSD, my friend Doug Phelps, who was singing in a project I had, he's a singer and bass player for the Kentucky Headhunters. He always stops and buys this used bookstore, stops and buys paperbacks to read when they're on the road.
Sure.
Well, he stopped by this day, and there was another kind of thick folder book, and he accidentally knocked it on the floor. And when he picked it up, he looked at it, and it said it was all about PTSD. And so he got it for me because I'd just been diagnosed. Huh. And how odd was that?
That's pretty cool.
But the book was, I
call those God winks.
I do too. Or God moments or God wink. I like that winks. But they're, It was everything I needed to know. And also it showed me that my behavior had been textbook.
Interesting.
And that just opened up a whole new world for me, knowing that and being able to calm down. And,
well, it's nice to be able to put a point on it.
Right.
To say this is the thing. Did the young man know you were at the probation? Could he see you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At the probation hearing?
He turned around and he's not allowed to talk to me, but he turned around and mouthed, "Thank you."
Aw.
Yeah.
I imagine that for him, I can't speak for him, but I imagine that just knowing you were there probably helped him, his psyche so much. Because I think you get to a point where you don't feel like anyone has faith in you, first of all, or that you're even worth anything. And so for the person he did those things to show up on his behalf and say, I'm here for you, that's amazing.
Well, I've sent him a couple of books to read. They mentioned that he read a lot.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it, and I thought about his history, and I thought about what kind of book should I send him. So I sent him Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut.
Great book.
And his grandmother texted me the other day and said that he loved the book, and he laughed. He said he had been laughing out loud at some of the parts. It's kind of hard to laugh in prison.
Sure.
So I sent him another book of Vonnegut stories, and then I sent him a book by Shakti Gawain about creative visualization of how you can, because he's got a long road. He's still going to be on probation for the rest of his sentence, which was 18 years.
So how long has he been incarcerated?
9 years.
Wow, so he's a man. He's a man now.
Yeah, sometimes murderers get out faster than that,
Sure, it's all dependent on.
It's so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, he was caught, but when he was caught here, he got busted for a bunch of other robberies that he had.
They compound.
Right.
Sure, and the use of a deadly weapon. I mean, there are choices people make. Interesting that you grabbed a knife. Just going back to the moment, and
I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it'd been a knife, it'd been a club, it'd been something, but...
Has it changed how you feel about your guns? Just knowing that somebody was going to use them against you?
I've never really been a gun person, but my dad's 93 years old, so we thought a few years ago it was a good idea to get the guns out of the house, So I put them over here, and I just had the handgun in my drawer because I was out here late at night. And sometimes in spring, I'd have the back door open late at night, and railroad tracks run right behind here, so you never know what's going on. So I just had it there for protection, but I did learn afterwards. I went and bought a modern handgun and went to the range and learned and practiced, and then
gun safety is extremely
but it's locked
important.
up.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's safe now.
But the problem is if that gun had been locked up, the kid wouldn't have gone. He wouldn't have shot at me. He wouldn't have shot at a cop. So my lack of being a good gun owner, caused part of this problem too. I'll take that little bit of responsibility for it.
Well,
the cops said, "Man, don't beat yourself up over it." And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to do that." But I said, "There is this much responsibility."
My show last week, Drew Smith, who's a gun enthusiast, a collector, we talked about all the things going on that have compounded throughout the history of the United States and in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about the Second Amendment and guns and all that stuff. And it is one of the things that I took away from that conversation is so many folks don't have the reverence for what that little thing does. The fact that it can kill someone.
It's meant to kill someone. That's
is.
what they are made for.
Yes, and that they don't, go and get the education or learn anything about whether they don't keep them in safe places.
I mean, I've gone through the concealed carry permit classes and stuff. I never did go get my permit. But it just amazes me that people have to be so afraid these days that they've got to carry a gun to go to McDonald's or something. I mean,
But for me, fear feeds fear. So the more afraid we all are, the more we respond to that fear with more fear, the worse off things are.
And fear is control. I mean, the people that are higher up on the food chain than us use this fear
I agree.
to manipulate all of us. And, I stopped having, I turned the television off for a couple of weeks, and things got a lot better.
Yes.
I'm a news hound, so that 24-hour news is like, wow, but it just gets stupid sometimes. And
I think you're right. It's a manipulation tool.
oh yeah,
on either side of the aisle.
Yes, unfortunately.
It doesn't matter which station you turn on. I think they're all their main objective is to keep you afraid, to sell their products, and fear is a product.
It's like after 9/11. What did Bush say? He said, "Go out and buy stuff."
Yeah.
Okay, you just had this big thing, and he's like telling you to go out and buy a car. It didn't make much sense to me. Still don't.
Still, yeah, it doesn't either. That don't even get me started on that whole thing. So you'll be there at the next.
Yeah, it was 12 months, so I guess it's 11 months now. So the grandmother will text me and let me know, and I'll go in. And now I've got facts and figures. I'm going to tell the guy exactly how much it's costing to keep him in here.
It's not cheap.
And
what about when he gets out? Let's say, so he's what, 26-ish now, 27?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in another year, 28, that's a full-grown man. What happens when he gets out? He has a felony conviction. He can't drive, so no driver's license, no right to vote, all the things that come along with a felony conviction. Do you feel like you're going to help him assimilate, or do you think once he's out, you've done your part, your partnership?
I think I'd pretty much done my part at that point in time because he's made his bed. He's got to deal with what he's done.
Of course.
But also because I sent him that book about creative visualization, he can that might give him a key to motivate him somewhere.
Sure.
Because imagination. A story about this place. I was reading that book, and it said, draw what you want and look at it every day. So I drew out a diagram of my studio, looked at it every day.
Did it look like this?
Well, I forgot about it. I put it in a box and just forgot about it. Well, a few years later, I bought this place, and I was unpacking boxes, and I found it. The drawing was a mirror image to this place, and it was to the foot.
It gives me the shivers.
I know, it's crazy, but it was to the foot. It's just like a flip mirror image. The bathroom was over here in my drawing, and the control room's out here in the back there. But it's just like you flip the picture over, and it's like this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Has the way you navigate the world changed since that event?
Well, I don't go out as much as I used to, and I don't gig as much as I used to. I just turned 60, and I'm having a hard time finding a bass player. But anyway.
You hear that, everyone?
Yeah,
there's a bass player in the Nashville, greater Nashville, Madison area.
But, I don't go out unless I'm gigging, really. Thank God for Amazon, but.
And that's because of that, do you think?
I think so. We were me and the wife were at Home Depot the other day, and it was just packed. And I knew my statistics that within so many people that you see, several of them are carrying guns, and I wasn't afraid so much as I got my spider senses up. I was just kind of keeping an eye on everything and looking around.
Hypervigilance.
Yeah. I tend to be that way when I'm in larger crowds.
Which is stressful for the immune system, by the way.
Yes, well, it's stressful for a musician that doesn't like big crowds. But stage is okay.
But if we're always in a state of hypervigilance, it's taxing our adrenal glands, which is really hard on our bodies.
And that's one reason I hang around here.
Yeah, Amazon, yeah. But the irony of Amazon, of course, is that I don't know how you feel about the NRA, but they have a partnership with the NRA for their NRA television show, which, is its own propagandist machine.
Right.
My father is a proud member of the NRA, and he and I have had lots of conversations. And again, I just talked about this last week, or I don't know when this episode is going to come out. But
I'm not an NRA guy. I think it's, lobbying laws, the way they were originally written were for municipalities and towns to go petition their congressman for a bridge or some sort of thing like that. That's what they were originally set up for, and now it's pay for play.
It's ridiculous.
You know, I mean, everybody likes their own congressman. They hate everybody else's, you know. And I actually like my congressman. I kind of trust him because he doesn't have a huge house after so many years in Congress. But, you know, I heard a story about this little kid told his dad he wanted to be a politician. And his dad says, "Why do you want to be a politician?" He goes, "Well, I've been studying, and it's the fastest way to become a millionaire before you're 30.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah, but it's so true. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the lobbying thing. I think it should be outlawed, as it has been in its own way in the music industry, right? You used to be able to send radio people cocaine and hookers and trips to Hawaii and that in exchange for plays.
I missed out on all that.
I know. On the radio, and that's the same thing. That's lobbying your radio.
Oh yeah,
DJ.
and it still goes on. It's just different. They have to work their way around the law. It's actually you can pay for play. Say if you're a record label, you can buy a block, an hour block on a radio station, like an advertisement,
and
then
play all your artists.
Right.
You can do that now. They didn't make that illegal, huh?
because it's advertisement.
Yeah.
It's not paying the DJ.
Right.
It's paying the owners, you know.
Well, I mean, I guess if you make a law, someone will figure out how to get around it.
But yeah, exactly. It's a human thing.
It is a human thing. Yeah. So what happens? Do you think it's changed how you even exist within your own home? Like, did you get extra security or anything, or did you just go?
Well, I put cameras.
Oh, yeah.
I've got cameras in. That was about it. They tell you when an event like that happens, you should move. Well, I didn't really, because, I was almost killed right here.
Sure.
So it's like, it's not good for you to
stay in that environment
every day. But what I did, I just moved the control room around a little bit to put my desk in a different spot. And
has that helped?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a weird deal. Maybe it's because I'm medicated. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Well.
Do you know about the multiverse? Have you ever read about that?
What, the multiple...
the theory that there are multiple universes.
Right, so in one universe I was killed.
Right. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Thank God it wasn't this one.
Yeah, or that in that moment the universe is split. And
right.
the one universe with you and your family, where you died, and then the one that you were alive is the one I'm talking to. And
right.
I love thinking about things like that. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. It gets a little deep sometimes. But,
did it push you to be more aggressive in your own life as far as things that you want to go after, or because you were older when it happened, do you think?
Well, mainly, that was 52 then. I'm 60 now. Just since I've turned 60, I'm starting to look at things a little differently. Like, I'm thinking about selling my 65 Stratocaster because I'm a drummer to begin with, and that's too much money hanging on the wall.
Sure.
Just things like I would have never thought about selling it 24 months ago.
Yeah.
But after 60, it's kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe, And I've been wanting a 12-string electric Rickenbacker for years, and I just bought it.
Huh.
I just went and said, I'll put it on credit card. I want it, because I don't know if I'll live tomorrow.
Right.
Today is today. But I'm not telling everybody to go out and use their credit cards because that's not really a good thing. But, I'll pay it off by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And plus,
life is to be lived.
Right, absolutely.
Well, by the time this episode comes out, you may have already sold your other one.
I don't know. It's still I've had it for 40 years.
It's hard to let go. It's hard to let go of stuff that,
And when it all comes down to it, it's just a bunch of atoms vibrating at different speeds. Yeah. So, the chair's built out of the same things, guitar and us and everything. So
I went to my parents' house, this was a few years ago, and I was helping them organize some things. And my dad has been retired for, a good while, especially, and at the time, I think he'd been retired for a handful of years already. And he still had floppy disks, like all these things. I'm like, Dad, throw these away. He said, well, I might need them. I said, what in the world would you need this for? And I said, just toss it. Who cares? And he said, all these things, everything you see in this house, this is your mother and me. This is who we are. And I said, no, who you are is standing in front of me having the conversation. He said, no. He said, I look around and I go, oh, that was that moment, or that's all a part of who you are. And
Right, I understand that completely.
yeah.
That's why I have a messy house with lots of instruments.
Yeah. And I'm more of I don't really hold on to things like that. I mean, some things, but not a lot of stuff.
My daughter's that way. She's not real sentimental. Yeah.
Yeah, and then probably the next generation is like the opposite again.
Right.
And it just keeps going opposite.
I mean, I try to keep things so when I'm gone, my grandson or my granddaughter will, check out stuff. Go, wow, look at him then, Papa G with hair. Oh,
Yeah.
But it really hasn't changed me that much.
I think it. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say just turning 60's changed me more than the guy trying to shoot me.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting that you've even given yourself the power to go back in a year and say, here are the statistics. I think a lot of people wouldn't go that far as to really put themselves into the information that then also speaks to their argument for a guy that tried to kill him.
Right. Well, I mean, it irritated me that he had done so good. Well, the last time he came up for parole, I didn't even know about it, but they said, okay, well, we'll try again in 4 years. All right. This one, they said 12 months. So that means he's at least on a positive track if he doesn't get in any more trouble or get in any trouble.
I assume they've got him on mental stability.
They don't. He is given his medication every day because he's over in the Derryberry or wherever the place is they have psychiatrists and stuff, and he's gotten some psychotherapy. And he don't have to take his meds every day. They don't make him take it, but it's a reaction thing. It's like, okay, you didn't take your medication this time. You started self-medicating, and look where you're at.
Right.
Okay, well, then I better take this or I'm going to end up the same spot.
Right, and people feel good and better when they're on them, and then they take them thinking, well, I'm better now. And then they spiral out of control rapidly.
Because I know I take a low dose of Zoloft every day, but I was out of my prescription for about a week. And I tell you what, by the third or fourth day, I was antsy. I was really antsy, so you can't just stop that stuff.
No. I don't know, when I think about forgiveness, I don't know what is an unforgivable crime. I know things that upset me as far as what people do to each other in this world. But forgiveness is pretty important. Like you said, it hurts you as much as carrying around the anger and the pain and all that. It's an easy thing to say to someone who has been brutally attacked, for example, because I have not had that experience. So intellectually is the only way I can think about it.
Right, and hopefully you won't ever have
I
that.
hope not.
Right,
statistically, though, who knows? But it does seem like that's a tough thing to carry around with you all the time.
Right. Well, I was happily divorced for 30 some odd years, so I got over a lot of anger and stuff after that. Me and my ex-wife got to be friends, because
That's good.
Because I'm friends with her husband.
Sure.
Unfortunately she passed away last year, but
I'm sorry.
I'm still her husband's very close to me. So after I released my anger from that, I learned that release through my divorce and her having my child and me only seeing her every once in a while, I was angry, But once I released all that anger, I learned from that.
Yeah.
And then you can be angry for a minute, but any longer than that, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
If you can release your anger and stay away from fear, your life is great.
It's a lot better, for sure.
Even I watch YouTube a lot, and I find it fascinating, all the conspiracy theories and all the stuff. And now, statistically, with all of the conspiracy theories out there, one or two of them's got to be true.
Sure, it's only a conspiracy until it's proven true.
Right, but at the same time, I just see all these things that people are so passionate about, and it cracks me up.
Yeah, but that's how people respond to fear, and paranoia is attached to fear. They're two-headed creatures, right?
Oh yeah,
hate, fear, paranoia, all that stuff. It's all the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
Hate is fear, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that your message is a great one, that forgiveness is a possibility, even in the face of Probably extreme terror. I imagine that moment was terrifying.
Well, I mean,
you didn't check out in the moment out of your body.
I mean, look at the Middle East. I mean, it's a family feud. The Jews and the Arabs are all genetically part of the same family, and they've been used and controlled by fear from each other. And
couple thousand years of
right, and then of course in the 40s the United Nations had to get into it and take Palestine and build a Jewish state there, and then put the Palestinians in these like camps and stuff. And okay, if you look at it, what if Germany had won the war in World War II and they decided to give the United States back to the Indians, and they put everybody else in Oklahoma? Mm-hmm. Well, after a few generations, people will be getting pretty upset.
Absolutely.
So, the turmoil there, it's perpetual. And I know Arabs and Jews here that are friends.
Absolutely.
And it just...
because they're removed, it's like you said, turn off the TV. Mm-hmm. Removed from the chaos. And I think a lot of the young people, sure, they're indoctrinated to hate each other from a young age, as are most people. Mm-hmm. They have to be indoctrinated at a young age. But I think the people that leave and go elsewhere and don't have that constant information being pounded into their head, they're a lot better at seeing the sameness in each other than the differences. Right,
and just like the hurricane, you had rednecks going into predominantly black neighborhoods and helping people. You had black people and white people and brown people, and it wasn't that they were all Americans, and there was trouble.
Right. That is when we come together.
And if we could focus more on that on a daily basis, things would be so much better than listening to about Donald's porn star and stuff.
Well, and I think if we saw each other as each other, which is why I do Hey Human.
Right.
If we saw each other in that regard, I think things would be better too.
Oh, absolutely.
So, thank you, Larry.
Well, thank you so much, Susan.
Yeah, I'd love for people to hear your music. Do you want to point anyone to the direction of a website or something?
I have several. I've got a couple projects. Dixie Tabernacle.
Oh, I love that.
.com. Well, Dixie Tabernacle was a building that the Opry was in for a couple years back in the 30s. And it has Jimmy Hall on vocals, Thane Sharon on vocals, and Doug Phelps on vocals. It's like a rock Three Dog Night, Southern Rock Three Dog Night or something.
That's amazing.
And we did a couple albums that, of course, went nowhere because we didn't have any money behind it.
Sure.
A lot of stuff I do doesn't have money behind it, but it's fun.
Well, I'll put links on Hey Human Podcast on the links page that direct people to buy some.
Yeah, you can. Larry Goad on iTunes. I have a solo record that's it's all first and second takes. It's a little raw, but I kind of dug it. Not producing it, just going out and
just being real.
Well, I saw Ray Wiley Hubbard on Letterman show one night doing a Drunken Poet's Dream. And I thought, that's great. And I learned it on the spot. And then I came out here and recorded it on the spot, and it's on the record.
That's great.
I did the vocal and the guitar. I added everything else later. But
that's the beauty of music, spontaneity.
Yeah, I know. Music is a wonderful thing. Everything is math, and music is math. Yeah. But it elicits emotions, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, Larry, thank you for your time today. And I will think good thoughts toward the young man that is awaiting
Tyler Ledbetter is his name.
All right, for Tyler to...
Anybody want to pray for him, that's more power to him.
More power to him. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.